On the list of great Canadian inventions, I reserve a special place in my heart for this.
Super Bassomatic 76 is the tool that lets you use the whole bass with no fish waste without scaling, cutting, or gutting.
Delicious. But bass smoothies aside, Dan Aykroyd is truly a great Canadian innovator. He was part of the original cast of Saturday Night Live, a group that made the censors sweat and helped turn SNL into a pop culture machine.
Well, together we can make honey, baby, the world has never seen.
Together with his friend, the late John Belushi, Dan created the Blues Brothers.
Are you the police?
No, ma'am. We're musicians.
This mythic duo that helped revive and popularize the sound of American blues. What followed was a phenomenon. The Ghostbusters films, both co-written by Dan. There are rumors about a third Ghostbusters too. I want to get Dan's inside take on that. In short, the guy who scored an Oscar nomination for Driving Miss Daisy helped launch the House of Blues and got into the liquor business. This guy has an otherworldly amount of talent. Fitting for a guy who continues to draw inspiration from aliens, ghosts, and the paranormal.
I waited my entire life to do this interview. Please welcome Dan Aykroyd! Good evening. How are you? How are you? Welcome. Thank you. I don't think, I think in this great time that you've been on the air here at CBC, this is the first time I've been on.
First time?
This is, yeah.
This is pretty cool.
George Stroumboulopoulos, come on, what a humanitarian. First of all, I mean, you do for other people. You're using your base of power and influence for other people.
Well,
and you're very admirable for that.
You're very kind for saying that. Thank you, sir.
No.
What is, I mean, the entrepreneurship. First of all, I like the crystal head thing, because you are kind of curious and interested in that sort of stuff, right? The crystal skulls, and there's been mysticism around your family.
It's entertaining, yes.
Yeah?
Well, my great-grandfather, Sam Aykroyd, who was a dentist in Kingston, was also a psychic researcher. And that's where Ghostbusters comes from. The old farmhouse was where we had seances, and entities would come through, according to my dad and my uncle and my grandmother and grandfather. I never saw any of it, but all that stuff was around sort of subliminally, and we had our own trance medium. He used to go into a trance, his head would go back, and he'd start speaking Mandarin, and he didn't speak Mandarin, he had a grade 12 education.
What role did your mom play in this?
My mom apparently had one just after I was born. She was nursing me upstairs in the farmhouse, and she kind of woke up and saw a couple standing at the end of the bed, and she cried out for my dad, and then the couple vanished, and then they hauled out an old family album, and it was my great-grandfather Sam and Ellen Jane. They'd come to sort of welcome the baby to the farmhouse. This is her story anyway, and my mom, she's a skeptic. She was a heavy-duty government bureaucratess. So if she told me that story, you know, it's true. I believe my mom.
As you should.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, this
would be a
place to
hairbrush
say.
across the, you know.
That's exactly.
In the old days. And then I'll...
The longer you're away from Canada on a full-time basis, what's your relationship with this country like? What does it mean to you, Canada?
Well, it means, I guess, it means that my DNA is plugged into the right place when I'm here. Mm-hmm. It's like an electric razor. You take it out and you use it, but when you put it back in the stand, it recharges. That's what I get recharged with. Is just the energy of my fellow countrymen. I don't know, the accent in my hometown, just the simplicity of the people. You know how privacy is respected here, how defamation and libel laws are respected, as are all religions, and just a free, wonderful society. So.
You know, when people now, they go to the Groundlings or UCB in the States, they're part of these comedy troupes, Second City, and for many the goal is Saturday Night Live, but when you get to Saturday Night Live, it's not the brand that it is today. It was a new thing. Did you know what you were getting into?
We didn't really know what we had until that first night, up until, you know, that first George Carlin night. We were rehearsing and figuring it out, but when he started his monologue and the audience started to see this is a little edgier than what's been on before, and then I remember standing backstage under the rafters there, and we were doing a scene where we were breaking into someone's house to prove that they should have a security system. Garrett Morris and I were standing there. I was just thinking, now, you know, if this doesn't work, it's really going to be, you know, it's the flaming Lancaster into the channel. But if it does work, you know, this could be something that lasts.
We just passed. It's just past 30 years now since John Belushi died.
Yeah, March 5, 1982.
Hindsight being what it is, what changed the most in you, aside from losing your friend? What changed the most in you in those years?
Well, I certainly, I guess, was more cautious about the type of people that we were hanging around with. You know, and was less reckless there. And also, I guess what I tried to do was keep John's legacy and the music alive, and spread the message that, you know, he wasn't only, you know, someone who died in an ignominious manner. He was a intelligent, funny, smart, well-read, considerate, kind, generous, compassionate, passionate artist, and you know, I think of him every day. Yeah.
Interesting, in the animated series of the Blues Brothers, it's his brother and your brother did some of the voices, right?
Yes, that's right.
Which is kind of neat. It stays as a family deal.
Yeah, we like that. Yeah, it's true. Jimmy can sound like John, and Peter can sound like me. Yeah. Should use that more often.
So you'd mentioned earlier about you trying to get Bill Murray to call you back on the other thing. Are you talking about the Ghostbusters 3?
Yeah, Ghostbusters 3. You know, I love him. Well, I'm going to look at some of the pages here coming up the next couple of weeks. Got a good, hot young writer on it. He wrote Men in Black 3 and Eitan Cohen, and he seems to be on the case there. And we'll see.
Is everybody involved from the original crew?
You know, I really don't know what I'm going to see there. I just know that Billy's expressed, you know, an interest in you know, perhaps looking at something, but it's hard to say with Murray. You know, the Murricane is an unpredictable. Well, look, there'll always be a place for him if he decides to come. But so far, he says that he's already done the role twice, and he wants to move on. I mean, you know, he's doing prestigious work as an actor. You know, yeah.
When did you call him the Murricane? When did that start?
Oh, that's always been from the very beginning, just to the whirlwind of activity that he is. You know, he's a, you know.
Stick around, more with Dan Aykroyd right after this.
Up next, we are a kid from Hull / Get to Know, who ends up being good friends with the godfather of soul. Then what happens? And more of Dan's incredible story next.
So very touched and pleased to be honored in this way. But if anybody is a king here tonight, it is this man, Mr. Try Me, Mr. Please, 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 Mr. This is a Man's World. I give you the hardest working man in show business, ladies and gentlemen, James Brown.
Nice, huh?
You know, when you say I'm from Hull, Quebec, a worthy, wonderful town near Ottawa there, where I grew up. You know, taking the bus back and forth, never did I ever think, you know, coming from Hull, Quebec, that James Brown would be one of my best friends.
How bizarre.
That was sort of the highlight working with him. We did three movies together, and he opened 5 House of Blues clubs for us.
Yeah, that's Dr. Detroit, but that's not just James Brown. You know, say that blonde woman in the crowd we cut.
Well, I know. I pointed her out. Mrs. A is around here someplace. Doesn't have the hair like that.
You met your wife in that movie?
Yes, indeed. The most important picture of my career, of course. Yeah.
Donna Dixon.
Yeah.
You made a run at being a priest, right?
I went to St. Pius X Minor Preparatory Seminary for Boys on Fisher Avenue in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I had an excellent high school education. I was asked to leave in grade 11 because the letter said, "We do not feel that your son is suitable for the priesthood." But let me tell you, I met some great guys, met some great priests, and some great devoted men, and all of them I remember fondly today. I would have made a very, very, very bad priest. I would have made a good confessor.
Which is half the game, dude.
Well, I guess the other half is sinning, maybe.
That's right.
I would have listened. I would have been able to listen and love dispensing advice. So you know that would have worked for me.
Well, your brain is. I think you have no risk of losing that acuity.
I'm going to keep those memory exercises going. Yeah.
But I've heard in the past, you were talking, I think it was on NPR, Do you identify with Asperger's?
I think, I went to an analyst when I was a kid, and I have a little touch of that. A little touch of Tourette's was the analysis at the time, and I still feel it a little bit today. Luckily, it's manageable and controllable. I've seen a lot, worse cases, and I really feel for people who have to fight that in the youth of their families. But I was able to overcome it and channel it creatively. But I still hear myself barking sometimes.
What you've done
alone, and you've got something when you're doing it.
I've interviewed people who are living with autism and some with Asperger's, and they talk about its effect on them creatively. Can you connect it to you?
I think, some of the, maybe just getting absorbed in kind of a look, a face, a voice. When I was a kid, in the mirror, like Jim Carrey talks about how he used to make faces in the mirror and become absorbed. I think maybe it might have grown out of that.
People's brains work in different ways, right?
Yeah. That's kind of a harmless application of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
What a real pleasure, man. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thanks. Well, it's about time I dropped in. Dan Aykroyd, we'll be right back.